The rain-slicked streets of New Haven gleamed under the sodium glow of street lamps, casting long shadows that twisted like secrets in the night. In the heart of the city's old Italian quarter, where brick row houses huddled against the wind off the harbor, Elena Rossi moved like a ghost through the back alleys. At 22, she was the only daughter of Vincent Rossi, the man whose name whispered through boardrooms and backrooms alike. A shipping magnate by day, a shadow kingpin by the endless night. But Elena had her own rebellions, small flames flickering against the iron grip of her father's world. It started with a chance encounter 3 weeks ago, in the dim fluorescence of a corner bodega. Maria Delgado, a girl from the wrong side of the tracks, literally, from the derelict rail yards where her family scraped by on odd jobs and government scraps, had been counting pennies for a loaf of bread when the bottom fell out. Her wallet, stolen in a blur of hands during the lunch rush, left her staring at empty shelves. Elena, grabbing her usual espresso, had seen the defeat in Maria's eyes, the way her shoulders slumped under a threadbare coat. Without a word, Elena slid a 20 across the counter, covering the basics, and then some. "Pay it forward," she'd muttered, vanishing before questions could form. What began as a simple act snowballed. Maria started showing up at the edges of Elena's life, a hesitant wave outside the university library, a shared bench during afternoon breaks. Soon, they were trading stories over cheap coffee in hidden cafes, Maria's tales of evictions and factory shifts clashing against Elena's veiled admissions of a life caged in luxury. When Maria's landlord finally padlocked the door on their crumbling apartment, Elena made a decision that would unravel everything. She brought Maria home. Not to the Rossi mansion on the hill, with its wrought iron gates and silent guards, but to the old safe house her father kept tucked away in the warehouse district. A forgotten relic from his early days. It was dusty, but secure, stocked with canned goods and a single bed in the loft. "Just until you get on your feet," Elena whispered, handing over a spare key. "No one knows about this place, not even him." But Vincent Rossi knew everything, or so it seemed. His empire wasn't built on blind luck. It thrived on whispers, on the network of eyes and ears that spanned from the docks to the precincts. That evening, as thunder rumbled over the Long Island Sound, Vincent sat in his study, the air thick with the scent of aged leather and cigar smoke. The room was a fortress of dark wood paneling and locked cabinets, overlooking the river where his freighters unloaded crates under cover of fog. A single desk lamp illuminated the ledger before him, discreet entries of shipments, debts settled in cash or favors. His phone buzzed, a burner model that only rang for trouble. "Capo," came the voice of Marco, his underboss, low and urgent from the other end. "The girl's place is empty. Landlord says she cleared out last night, but we picked up a tale. Your Elena's been seen with her down by the yards." Vincent's jaw tightened, the scar along his cheek pulling taut, a memento from a rival's blade 20 years back. He stubbed out his cigar, the ember hissing against the ashtray. Elena had always been the soft spot, the one light in a life stained by blood and betrayal. After her mother's death in a car accident that still haunted his dreams, he'd sworn to shield her from the shadows. No guns in the house, no late-night meetings under her roof. But this? Hiding some stray from the streets? It reeked of vulnerability, a crack in the armor that enemies could exploit. "Bring her to me," Vincent said finally, his voice a gravel rumble. "Quietly, and find out who the friend is. I want eyes on that safe house by dawn." Across town, in the safe house's dim glow, Elena paced the creaky floorboards. The space smelled of damp concrete and motor oil from the adjacent garage, the distant hum of generators vibrating through the walls. Maria sat on the edge of the bed, twisting a frayed napkin in her hands. "You sure this is okay? Your dad's intense. What if he finds out?" Elena forced a smile, though her pulse raced. "He won't. This place is off the grid. No cameras, no guards. It's my secret. But even as she said it, a chill prickled her skin. Earlier that day, she'd noticed a black sedan idling too long at the university gates, its tinted windows reflecting her like a void. Paranoia, she told herself. Her father's world bred it. Hours later, as midnight bled into the storm, the door to the safe house rattled. Not a knock, a deliberate shove, the lock giving way under skilled hands. Elena bolted upright from the couch, heart slamming. Maria froze, eyes wide. Floodlights pierced the windows, casting stark silhouettes of men in dark coats. Vincent stepped through first, his presence filling the room like smoke. Rain dripped from his overcoat, pooling on the threshold. He wasn't yelling. That would have been easier. Instead, his gaze swept the space, landing on Maria with clinical detachment. "Elena," he said, voice steady as the river outside. "You bring a stranger into our house. Why?" She stood, chin lifted, the air electric with unspoken codes. "She's not a stranger, Papa. She's a friend, and she needed help." Vincent's eyes narrowed, taking in Maria's worn shoes, the backpack spilling threadbare clothes. But then, unexpectedly, he nodded to Marco. "Get her a coat. It's pouring." Turning to Elena, he added softer, "We'll talk. All of us. But first, we move. Now." As the group piled into the waiting SUVs, engines growling against the downpour, Maria glanced back at the safe house fading in the rear view. A single taillight flickered in the distance. Had it been there before? Vincent's hand rested on Elena's knee, possessive yet protective, but his mind churned. This poor friend wasn't just a girl. She carried sense of desperation that could draw wolves to their door. And in his world, debts like this demanded repayment, not in money, but in loyalty. What game had his daughter started? And who was watching them slip into the night? The SUVs carved through the storm-lashed streets of New Haven, wipers slashing rhythmically against the relentless rain. Inside the lead vehicle, Elena sat rigid in the leather seat, the scent of wet wool and polished gunmetal thick in the air. Vincent's hand remained on her knee, an anchor that felt more like a chain, steady, unyielding. Maria huddled in the back with Marco, her backpack clutched like a shield, eyes darting to the fogged windows. The taillight she'd spotted lingered in her mind, a red ghost weaving through the downpour. But she said nothing. Speaking up now felt like stepping into a minefield. Vincent stared ahead, his profile etched sharp against the passing glow of harbor lights. The river churned below the elevated road, black waves slapping against concrete pilings, a reminder of how quickly fortunes could capsize. He'd built his life on control. Cargo manifests that doubled as ledgers of favors owed, guards whose rotations synced like clockwork to evade federal sweeps. But Elena's defiance. That was a variable he hadn't accounted for. Hiding a girl like Maria wasn't just reckless. It invited leverage. Rivals from the Albanian crew across the Sound had been sniffing around his docks lately, their encrypted texts intercepted by his tech guy showing interest in family vulnerabilities. Was this stray a plant, or worse, an unwitting pawn? "Head to the penthouse," Vincent murmured to the driver, his voice cutting through the hum of the engine. Not the mansion. That was too exposed, with its manicured lawns and visible gates. The penthouse atop the old cannery building downtown was his bolt hole, high-rise anonymity, with private elevators and a rooftop helipad for quick exfils. Double back twice. Shake any tails. Elena twisted toward him, rain-streaked hair clinging to her face. "Papa, you didn't have to raid the place like that. Maria's not a threat. She's just down on her luck?" Vincent finished, his tone even, almost amused. But his eyes, dark as the river below, held no humor. "In our world, luck is a currency, Elena, and strangers spend it fast." He glanced at Maria in the rear view, appraising. She met his gaze briefly, then looked away, the faint tremor in her hands betraying her. Poor kid, Vincent thought. Threadbare coat, calloused fingers from whatever shift she pulled at the rail yards. She didn't scream informant, too wide-eyed for that game. But trust wasn't given, it was extracted, like tariffs on a late shipment. The convoy snaked through the warehouse district, sodium lamps painting the wet asphalt in oily sheens. Distant cranes groaned against the wind, unloading crates under tarps that flapped like warning flags. Marco's radio crackled softly, affirmative from the trailing SUV, no signs of pursuit. Yet Vincent's instincts prickled. Earlier, his guy at the bodega had pulled Maria's sparse file. No priors, family bounced between shelters, a brother who vanished into the foster system years back. Clean, but cleans could be scrubbed. And that taillight Maria had glimpsed? Coincidence? Or the Albanians testing waters? They pulled into the underground garage beneath the cannery, tires humming over grated floors that echoed like a vault. Armed men materialized from shadows, scanning the vehicles with handheld detectors before waving them through. The private elevator whisked them upward, the ascent smooth but claustrophobic, mirrors reflecting their tense faces back infinitely. Elena's heart pounded. This wasn't rebellion anymore. It was entanglement. Maria beside her whispered, "I can leave. I don't want to cause—" "No," Elena cut in, fierce. "You're staying. This is on me." The doors slid open to the penthouse foyer, a stark contrast to the safe house's grit. Polished marble floors, walls lined with abstract art that hid safes and panels. The air carried a faint tang of sea salt from the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, where freighters bobbed like sleeping beasts. Vincent shrugged off his coat, revealing the tailored suit beneath, scarred knuckles flexing as he gestured to the open-plan living area. A long glass table dominated the space, flanked by leather chairs. Beyond, the kitchen gleamed with stainless steel, a stocked bar humming faintly from the fridge. "Sit," Vincent said, not a command but close enough. He poured 3 glasses of water from a filtered pitcher, deliberate, no alcohol to cloud judgments, handing one to each. Maria accepted hers with a nod, perching on the edge of a chair like she might bolt. Elena sank beside her, the cool glass grounding her racing thoughts. Vincent leaned against the table, arms crossed, the storm's rumble underscoring his words. "Start from the beginning, Elena. The bodega. Why her?" Elena hesitated, the weight of his stare pulling details like threads from a seam. She was broke, staring at bread she couldn't afford. I know what it's like to feel invisible, Papa. In your world maybe, but not mine." It was half true. Her life was gilded, but the isolation chafed, a cage of bodyguards and veiled warnings. Vincent's expression softened fractionally, a flicker of the man who'd once pushed her on swings by the estate's pond. But then his gaze sharpened on Maria. "And you? Delgado, right? Rail yards. What's your angle?" Maria swallowed, voice steady despite the quiver. "No angle, sir. Just surviving. Elena helped when no one else did. I didn't ask for this." He studied her, the silence stretching taut as a wire. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the docks where shadows shifted, guards on patrol, or something else. Vincent's phone vibrated in his pocket, but he ignored it, mind turning. Execute the threat, evict her, wipe the slate, or leverage it. Elena's softness was her strength and his blind spot. Binding this girl through obligation could teach loyalty without breaking spirits. Unexpectedly, he straightened. "You're both staying here tonight. Guards on the doors, no arguments." Turning to Marco, who lingered by the entrance, he added, "Pull her brother's file, quietly, and check the bodega tapes. Full rewind." Elena's eyes widened. "Papa?" Vincent met her gaze, a rare warmth cracking his facade. "Help like that doesn't come free in my world, Elena. But debts can be assets." She stays under our roof. Fine, but she earns it. Tomorrow we talk terms. As the women retreated to the guest wing, doors clicking shut behind them, Vincent stepped to the window. The taillight from earlier, Marco's text confirmed a black sedan dumped in an alley, plates stolen from a junker. Not random. Someone had been watching the safe house before he arrived. His hand tightened on the glass. This friend wasn't just a stray. She was a spark in dry tinder. But whose fire would it ignite? Theirs, or the wolves circling the harbor? Dawn filtered through the penthouse windows like a hesitant intruder, painting the harbor in muted grays and silvers. The storm had relented, leaving the air heavy with the brine of the Sound and the faint, acrid tang of diesel from the docks below. Elena stirred in the guest room's king-sized bed, the Egyptian cotton sheets a far cry from the safe house's lumpy mattress. Beside her, Maria lay curled under the duvet, her breathing steady but shallow. Sleep born of exhaustion, not peace. The room was a sanctuary of sleek minimalism, walnut nightstands, a hidden safe behind a seascape painting, and blackout curtains that now hung limp, admitting the day's reluctant light. Elena slipped out of bed, padding barefoot across the heated marble floor to the ensuite bathroom. The mirror reflected her tousled hair and shadowed eyes, a reminder that one night's reprieve didn't erase the rift. Papa's terms echoed in her mind, debts as assets, loyalty forged in obligation. She splashed water on her face, the cool droplets chasing away the fog, then returned to find Maria awake, sitting up with wide eyes scanning the opulent space. This place. It's like a movie set, Maria whispered, her voice laced with awe and unease. She tugged at the hem of the oversized t-shirt Elena had lent her, the fabric swallowing her slight frame. Your dad's not kicking me out? After everything? Elena sat on the bed's edge, squeezing Maria's hand. Not yet, but he's testing us. Me, mostly. He sees you as a loose end I tied myself to. The words hung between them, heavy as the fog rolling off the river. Elena's life had always balanced on her father's code: protect the family, extract from outsiders. But Maria wasn't an outsider anymore. Not fully. Their friendship, born in that bodega's harsh light, felt like a quiet rebellion, a thread of autonomy in a world stitched with surveillance and favors. Down the hall, Vincent stood in the kitchen, the espresso machine hissing as it brewed a double shot. The penthouse hummed with subtle life, the low whir of the ventilation system, the distant clank of cranes unloading cargo at the piers. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with old scars, a mug steaming in his grip. Marco entered through the service door, rain-dampened shoes leaving faint prints on the floor. In his hand, a slim tablet glowed with data, pulled overnight from discreet sources. Brother's file first, Vincent said, voice low, eyes on the harbor, where a freighter's lights blinked like coded signals. What did you dig up? Marco slid the tablet across the counter, the screen displaying a grainy photo of a young man in his 20s, hollow-cheeked and unsmiling. Ricky Delgado. Went into the system at 15 after their folks split. Dad OD'd, Mom bounced. Foster hops until 18, then vanished. Last ping. A burner phone traced to the rail yards 2 months back. No hits on our rivals, but he's got a rap sheet. Petty theft. Nothing heavy. Could be scraping by or working angles. Vincent scrolled, his thumb pausing on a time-stamped log. A call from that burner to an unlisted number tied to a trucking firm Vincent knew too well. The Albanian's front, laundering through halls from the ports. Coincidence? In his line, those were rarer than honest cops. And the sedan? Dumped in the alley off Elm. Plates from a '98 Civic scrapped last year. Wiped clean. No prints. But the GPS chip was fried. Amateur hour or deliberate misdirect. Marco's tone carried the weight of implication. Someone had eyes on the safe house, close enough to bolt when Vincent's crew rolled in. Vincent set the mug down, the ceramic clinking sharply. Elena's soft spot for strays could be a vector, leverage for the crews eyeing his shipments. But evicting Maria now would fracture his daughter further, and fractures invited betrayal. No, better to fold her in, test her mettle. Keep tails on the brother, quiet, and pull the bodega footage, every frame from the day Elena met her. Elena and Maria emerged as the aroma of fresh brew filled the air, drawn like moths to the light. Vincent turned, his expression a mask of paternal calm, though his mind churned with logistics. Guard rotations tightened, access codes rotated by noon. "Morning," he said, sliding plates of scrambled eggs and toast across the island. Simple, no frills, a nod to normalcy. "Eat, then we talk real." Maria hesitated, fork hovering, the clatter of cutlery underscoring the tension. "Mr. Rossi, I don't want to be a burden. I can find a shelter or—" "Sit," he interrupted, not harshly, but with the finality of a man who'd brokered deals over loaded tables. "Burden's what you make it. Elena vouched for you. In my house, that means something." He watched her closely, noting the subtle flinch at house, a tell of streets-honed wariness. No plant would slip that easily. Informants played bolder. As they ate, the conversation skirted edges, Elena defending Maria's character with stories of shared laughs over library books, Maria offering halting thanks laced with questions about the penthouse's security, cameras in the lobby, retinal scans on the elevator. Vincent answered sparingly, his responses revealing little, probing more. "Rail yards pay what? $8 an hour? What's a girl like you do with downtime?" Maria met his gaze, chin steady. "Read. Dream of getting out." Elena's the first who saw past the rags. Honesty rang true, but Vincent's instincts snagged on her averted eyes when the brother came up. Casual mention, but she stiffened, like a guard rotation shifting off schedule. The meal wrapped as the sun climbed, burning off the mist to reveal the dock's bustle. Longshoremen hauling crates stamped with innocuous labels, hiding payloads of contraband. Vincent's phone buzzed. A text from his dock foreman. Anomaly in last night's manifest. A container short by 2 pallets. Timing too neat. He pocketed it, standing. "Elena, show her the ropes. Gym, library. Keep it inside. Marco?" His underboss nodded, already moving to the study where monitors flickered with feeds from the garage cams. But as Elena led Maria toward the guest wing, a faint beep echoed from Maria's backpack, left by the door. She froze, color draining. Vincent's hand shot out, retrieving it before she could. A cheap flip phone, screen lighting with a single message. "Found you. Meet at yards. R." The air thickened, the hum of the city below a mocking underscore. Vincent's scar pulled tight as he crushed the device under his heel, plastic cracking like brittle trust. Not a stray, a link to the shadows he'd built his code against. Elena's eyes widened in betrayal, Maria's in terror. Who was Ricky running from, and how deep did the Albanian's hook sink? The penthouse, once a fortress, now felt like a trap, closing slow. If you're enjoying this story so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The penthouse air turned stale, the faint ozone scent from the crushed phone mingling with the lingering bitterness of espresso. Vincent's boot ground the remnants into the marble floor, shards scattering like shattered illusions. Elena's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp, while Maria backed against the wall, her face ashen, eyes locked on the debris. The harbor view beyond the windows mocked them, calm waters hiding undercurrents, just like the girl they'd invited in. "Papa, wait," Elena started, voice cracking, but Vincent held up a hand, silencing her. His gaze bored into Maria, not with rage, but the cold precision of a man dissecting a manifest for discrepancies. The code he'd lived by: protect the innocent, extract from threats, ward within him. Elena's trust had tethered this girl to their world. Discarding her now would sever that bond, leaving his daughter adrift in resentment. "Whose is it?" Vincent asked, voice low, the rumble echoing off the high ceilings like distant thunder. Maria's knees buckled slightly, but she straightened, fists clenched at her sides. "My brother's. Ricky. He checks in sometimes. That's all." Her words tumbled out, laced with the raw edge of fear, the kind honed from years dodging eviction notices and shadowed alleys. The backpack zipper had betrayed her, a loose thread in Vincent's web of scrutiny. Elena stepped forward, placing herself between them, her pulse thundering in her ears. The room's polished surfaces amplified every breath, every shift of weight. The creak of leather as Vincent moved, the soft whir of the ventilation pulling in harbor mist. "She's not lying, Papa. Maria wouldn't what? Bring trouble to our door." Vincent cut in. But there was no venom, only calculation. He knelt, retrieving a twisted SIM card from the mess, slipping it into his pocket for later extraction. Ricky Delgado's name burned in his mind, the file's sparse details now a live wire. A petty thief with ties to Albanian fronts? Or a desperate sibling pulling Maria into the undertow? Vincent's empire thrived on such intel. Shipping logs that masked payoffs, burner relays that outpaced feds. But family vulnerabilities, those were the cracks rivals exploited, like the shorted container from last night, a probe testing his defenses. Marco appeared at the study door, tablet in hand, his face a mask of professional detachment. "Boss, bodega tapes are clean. No tails on the meat. But the clerk remembers a guy asking after the Delgado girl 2 days after. Paid in cash, no face clear." He glanced at Maria, then away, the implication hanging. Someone had connected dots before Vincent's crew. "Get the tech on that SIM," Vincent ordered, rising smoothly. "And pull traffic cams from the yards, last 2 weeks. I want Ricky's patterns." To Maria, he added unexpectedly, "You eat yet? Sit. This changes nothing about breakfast." It was an olive branch wrapped in steel. Feed the potential threat, observe her tells. Elena blinked, caught between relief and suspicion. Her father's code bent for her sake, but at what cost? Maria sank into a chair, hands trembling as she pushed eggs around her plate, the fork scraping like nails on chalk. The penthouse's luxury pressed in. The soft hum of the fridge, the faint salt tang from the open balcony doors where gulls wheeled over the docks. Below, longshoremen shouted orders, cranes groaning as they swung pallets of what looked like legitimate cargo, but hid darker loads. "Ricky's not. He's not in your world," she said finally, voice steadying. "He got mixed up in some hauls after foster care. Trucking jobs, nothing big. But the Albanians, they squeeze everyone at the yards. He owes them, I think. That's why he hides." Vincent nodded once, filing it away. Ambition versus prudence, the eternal pull in his circles. He'd lost men to such debts, bodies fished from the river after accidents. But Maria's eyes held no guile, just the quiet desperation of survival, mirroring Elena's own hidden fires. "Owes how much?" he pressed, leaning against the counter, the scar on his cheek catching the light. She hesitated, glancing at Elena for anchor. "Enough to run. Last I heard, a couple grand from a botched delivery. He sent that phone to keep tabs, make sure I was safe, not to drag me in." Elena's heart twisted. Loyalty versus fear, the same bind her father navigated daily. She reached for Maria's arm, the warmth a defiant link. "Papa, if it's the Albanians, you know their game. They use family as bait. We can't just—" "Throw her out?" Vincent finished, his tone softening as he met his daughter's gaze. The push and pull was palpable, possessiveness clashing with her budding autonomy. He'd shielded Elena from this life, no guns in her sight, but hiding strays pulled her deeper. Unexpectedly, he turned to Marco. "Prep the safe room downstairs. Full kit, meds, burners, exit routes. She's under our protection until we sort this." Maria's head snapped up, disbelief etching her features. Why? I mean, thank you. But because Elena chose you, Vincent said simply, the words carrying the weight of his code. In my world, that's a vow. But vows demand repayment. You help us find Ricky, tell us his haunts, his patterns. No lies. It was leverage, yes, but laced with restraint. Never harm innocents, even those who wandered in. As Marco escorted Maria to settle her things, Elena lingered, the air between father and daughter thick with unspoken fractures. You're really doing this? For her? Vincent's hand rested on her shoulder, a rare gesture of warmth amid the chill of revelation. For you, Principessa. But eyes open. This brother's a thread to wolves, and wolves don't knock. The afternoon wore on, the penthouse a hive of quiet activity. Vincent retreated to the study, monitors flickering with cam feeds, the garage's grated floors empty save for the SUVs, the lobby's retinal scanner blinking green for cleared personnel. Outside, the harbor stirred. Freighters docking under watchful eyes, manifests cross-checked against encrypted ledgers. A text from the dock foreman pinged. The missing pallets traced to an Albanian-linked truck, plates swapped overnight. Timing synced too perfectly with Maria's arrival. Elena paced the balcony, wind whipping her hair, the river's metallic scent grounding her. Maria joined her, the two sharing a silent vigil, bonds tested by the intrusion. But as shadows lengthened, a low alert chimed from the study. Traffic cam hit on Ricky, a hooded figure slipping into the rail yards at dusk, meeting a man with an Albanian accent, per the lip reader's prelim. Payment exchanged. Tense words about the sister. Vincent watched the feed, jaw set, protection pledged, but at what exposure? If Ricky was turning Maria over, the penthouse's vaunted security, jammed exits, false alarms, might not hold. And as the sun dipped, painting the water blood red, a distant engine revved in the garage below, unlogged. Friend or foe slipping the net. The penthouse's study thrummed with the soft click of keyboards, screens casting a blue pallor over Vincent's face as he hunched over the desk. The air carried the sharp bite of cooling electronics and the ever-present brine from the harbor, seeping through the sealed windows like an insistent whisper. Below, the unlogged engine's rev had faded into the garage's echoes, dismissed, for now, as a maintenance crew's oversight. But Vincent's instincts, honed by decades of parsing shipping manifests for hidden threats, refused to quiet. Ricky Delgado's grainy image from the traffic cam looped on one monitor, hooded, tense, handing off an envelope to a stocky figure with the telltale bulk of an Albanian enforcer. Lip readers were still decoding the exchange, but the body language screamed urgency, debts pressing like the tide against the docks. Elena hovered in the doorway, arms crossed, the balcony's chill clinging to her sweater. Her father's world had always been a distant hum, muffled by the mansion's walls and his veiled reassurances. But now, with Maria's backpack rifled through on the side table, its contents catalogued like contraband, a worn photo of siblings at a faded fairground, a crumpled rail pass, no weapons, she felt the pull of entanglement. Autonomy clashed against the safety of his shadow. She'd chosen Maria to claim a piece of her own life, but that choice now rippled outward, drawing in wolves. "Papa," she said, stepping inside, her voice cutting through the hum of the ventilation. "Maria's scared. She's not part of this. Ricky is. Let her stay out of it." Vincent didn't look up, his fingers drumming the desk, a rhythm like the distant generators powering the cranes outside. Out of it? Principessa, that phone was a beacon. If the Albanians are squeezing her brother, they know about her. About you. He straightened, the chair creaking under his weight, and met her eyes. The scar on his cheek pulled taut, a reminder of his own losses, the wife taken in that engineered crash, a betrayal he'd avenged without mercy. His code demanded restraint with innocence, but Elena's involvement twisted that vow. Possessiveness surged. She was his to protect, even from her own compassion. Across the hall, Maria sat in the guest lounge, knees drawn up on the leather sofa, the room's neutral tones doing little to ease her frayed nerves. The faint scent of polished wood and faint lavender from the diffusers warred with the knot in her stomach. Ricky's message replayed in her mind. Found you. Meet at yards. R. Desperation, not malice. She knew that. He'd scraped by on those trucking gigs, dodging the Albanian's grip after a fumbled haul left him short. But bringing heat to Elena's door? That was a debt she couldn't repay. Loyalty to her brother pulled against the fragile trust she'd found here, in this gilded cage. Marco entered the study, tablet in hand, his steps muffled on the thick carpet. SIM extraction's done, boss. Last calls. 3 to that trucking front, 1 to a payphone near the rail yards. Timestamp matches the botched delivery. Ricky was hauling for them 2 nights ago. And the enforcer on cam? Goes by Lika. We've crossed paths. Low-level muscle, runs collections. Vincent nodded, absorbing it like cargo weights on a manifest. The Albanians had been nibbling at his docks for months. Intercepted texts hinting at sabotage, guards spotting unfamiliar faces during night shifts. Ricky could be their in, a desperate pawn feeding scraps about Maria, who fed them to Elena's safe house. Patterns, he said. Where's he hole up? Old freight depot off the East Branch, Marco replied, pulling up a satellite overlay. The screen showed rusting tracks snaking through derelict warehouses, sodium lights pooling on cracked concrete. Burner pings cluster there. Could be a meat spot, or he's squatting. But our tail lost him after the exchange, slipped into a storm drain tunnel. Pros or luck. Elena's breath hitched. Tunnels under the yards. Rat mazes of forgotten rail lines, reeking of oil and stagnation. Where deals went down away from prying eyes. She'd read about them in her urban history texts, but now they loomed as a threat, a vein connecting Maria's past to their present. We can't just send people after him. What if he's in over his head? Vincent's gaze softened, but his resolve held like iron bulkheads. We don't send, we extract, quietly. He turned to Marco. 2-man team, non-lethal. Track the payphone logs. Next call's our window. To Elena, he added, You and Maria stay put. Penthouse lockdown. Elevators keyed to my print. Garage sealed. No balconies after dark. She bristled, the autonomy he'd always dangled feeling like a leash tightening. I'm not a kid, Papa. If this is because of me. It is, he cut in, voice gravel rough. And that's why it ends with us controlling it. The words carried his legacy's weight. Power not for conquest, but preservation. Past losses shaped him. Vows to shield family. Even strays his daughter claimed. But fear gnawed. One betrayal, and the river would claim another. As evening fell, the harbor lights flickered on, casting the water in fractured gold. Maria joined Elena in the lounge, the two sharing a pot of tea from the kitchenette, steam curling like secrets. The penthouse's hum grew oppressive, the soft beep of security panels, the distant rumble of a passing freighter. Ricky wouldn't sell me out, Maria murmured, cup trembling in her hands. He's all I have left. But the Albanians, they twist everything. Last job, he said they threatened the whole family if he didn't deliver. Elena's hand covered hers, a bridge against the rising tide. Then we help him. Papa's code. He doesn't abandon debts. But doubt flickered. Trust versus suspicion. The human fractures that undid empires. Vincent watched from the study doorway, unseen, his phone vibrating with the encrypted update. Lika's crew mobilizing. 2 vans heading to the yards. Coincidence? Or a staged diversion, drawing his men thin? He pocketed it, stepping out to the balcony alone. The wind off the sound carried the low moan of foghorns, and in the distance, headlights pierced the dusk, trailing the rail lines, too deliberate for traffic. As the first drops of returning rain pattered the glass, a shadow shifted in the garage feed on his watch. The unlogged engine idling again, doors creaking open. Not maintenance, infiltration. But whose? Ricky's desperate bid, or the Albanians closing the net? Rain lashed the penthouse windows like frantic fingers, blurring the harbor's lights into smeared halos. Vincent's watch vibrated again, the garage feed updating in silent frames. The unlogged van's doors swung wide, revealing two figures in dark hoods slipping out, their movements low and practiced, avoiding the overhead cams by sticking to the grated shadows. The air in the study thickened with the metallic tang of ozone from the storm, mixing with the faint, stale smoke of Vincent's unlit cigar on the desk. He didn't call for Marco. Not yet. Alerting the team too soon could spook the intruders, turning a probe into a firefight. His code demanded precision: assess, contain, extract without collateral. Down the hall, Elena and Maria's voices murmured from the lounge, a fragile counterpoint to the rising gale. Elena paced the carpet, her footsteps muffled but insistent. The soft rustle of her sweater brushing against the sofa where Maria sat, knees hugged tight. The room's diffusers hummed, pumping out lavender that clashed with the storm's wild brine seeping through the vents. Papa's pulling strings, but this feels wrong, Elena said, voice pitched low, laced with the push-pull of her independence against his ironclad protection. Ricky's family to you. We can't just hunt him like a loose shipment. Maria's eyes, shadowed by exhaustion, flicked to the balcony doors rattling in their frames. He's not running from you. From them, the Albanians. Leek is the one who cornered him after that haul went south. Ricky said it was just a flat tire, but they spun it like sabotage, owed them for the damage. Her words carried the weight of street-side truths, debts compounded like interest on a bad loan, pulling kin into the undertow. Loyalty to her brother warred with the safety Elena offered, a tentative family she'd stumbled into. If your dad finds him first, what then? Hand him over? Elena stopped, hand on the cool glass table, its surface reflecting the storm's fury. He won't. Papa's code. No innocents pay for others' slips. But trust me, it's not free. The words hung, echoing her own bind. Gratitude for his shield. Resentment at its cost. Outside, thunder rolled, vibrating the floors like a warning from the docks below, where waves slapped pilings in erratic rhythm. Vincent slipped from the study, phone in hand, thumbing a silent alert to Marco. Garage breach. Hold position. Eyes only. The underboss's reply buzzed back instantly. Affirmative, with the secondary team rerouting from the warehouse perimeter. Vincent moved down the corridor, his steps silent on the marble, pausing at the lounge threshold. The women didn't notice, too absorbed in their quiet storm. He watched Elena's profile, the fierce set of her jaw, a mirror of his younger self, before betrayals scarred him. Possessiveness surged. She dragged this mess home, but severing it now would fracture her further. No. Fold it in. Test the seams. Evening's turning, he said, stepping in, voice cutting the tension like a knife through fog. Both heads snapped up, Elena's eyes narrowing in suspicion, Maria's widening with fresh wariness. The room's lamps cast long shadows, dancing with the lightning flashes that illuminated the harbor's cranes like skeletal sentinels. Elena rose, arms folding across her chest. The feeds? You saw something. It wasn't a question. She'd glimpsed his watch earlier, the subtle tick of his jaw. Vincent nodded once, economical. Garage, uninvited guests. Not yours, Maria. Not yet. He turned to her, gaze steady, probing for tells. The subtle shift in her posture, hands twisting in her lap like frayed ropes. Ricky's patterns. Yards, tunnels. You know the East Branch Depot? Old freight lines, storm drains linking to the river. Maria swallowed, the lavender-scented air suddenly cloying. Yeah. He crashed there after shifts, before the phone went dark. Entries through a rusted gate off track 7. Guards rotate every hour, but the Albanians pay them off with smokes and cash. Her voice steadied, spilling details like a manifest under duress. Access codes scratched on walls, 4732 for the side panel, burner drop points in the tunnels where signals bounced off concrete. It was logistics born of survival, not betrayal. Human error in the Albanians' net. A brother clinging to scraps. Elena's pulse quickened. The room's confines pressing in as rain hammered harder, a blackout flickering the lights for a heartbeat. False alarm, but enough to spike adrenaline. You're using her intel. Papa, that's smart, he finished softer, his hand gesturing to the sofa. Sit, both of you. Lockdown means no moves. But even as he spoke, his phone vibrated. Marco's update. Terse. Intruders scoping elevator shaft. Armed light. Albanian ink on 1. The pieces slotted. Diversion at the yards to draw his teams thin, while Lika's muscle infiltrated here, hunting Maria as leverage on Ricky. Surveillance threads converged. Traffic cams. SIM pings. Now this botched entry. Guards' rotations compromised by a turncoat palm greased. Maria leaned forward, voice urgent. If it's Lika, he'll torch the place if he doesn't get what he wants. Ricky mentioned a fire last month, staged to flush a debtor from a warehouse. Exits jammed with crates, smoke from oil drums. The words painted the hazard, environment weaponized, blackouts engineered by cut lines, storms masking escapes. Vincent's scar itched, memory of his wife's crash flashing, brakes tampered, rain-slick roads. He pocketed the phone, decision crystallizing. Marco's handling the garage. You two, safe room, now. Elena protested, autonomy flaring, but he met her eyes, the paternal code unyielding, protection over pride. This isn't a debate, Principessa. Trust the play. As they moved, the penthouse groaned under the gale, a distant crash echoing from the garage, tires screeching, muffled shouts cut by silenced reports. Lights dimmed again, longer this time, the hum of generators kicking in with a stutter. Elena gripped Maria's arm, the two hurrying down the service stairs, Vincent covering their flank. The safe room door, biometric lock beeping green, sealed behind them, concrete walls muffling the chaos above. Inside, dim LEDs glowed over monitors showing the feeds. Marco's team converging, the intruders pinned in the shaft, but one slipping toward the lobby, radio crackling in Albanian. Maria sank onto the bench, breath ragged. Ricky, if they get him first. He won't, Elena said, fierce, though fear gnawed. Bonds tested, the family they'd forged, now a target. Vincent lingered at the panel, overriding the external locks, his mind racing contingencies. Convoy extraction if the breach escalated, helipad prepped for evac. But as a final alert chimed, Ricky's burner pinging the payphone, coordinates flashing the east tunnels, doubt crept. Was the call a lure, pulling Vincent's men into the storm-drenched maze? Or Ricky's desperate hail, begging extraction before Leka's fire lit the night? The safe room's air grew heavy, the river's roar outside a promise of deeper perils yet to surface. The safe room's LEDs flickered like hesitant stars, casting elongated shadows across the concrete walls that seemed to pulse with the storm's fury outside. The air inside was cool and sterile, laced with the faint metallic tang of recycled oxygen from the vents, a far cry from the penthouse's opulent warmth. Elena pressed her palm against the monitor screen, its glow illuminating the grainy feed. Marco's team closing in on the garage intruders, shadows darting through the grated underbelly like rats in a flood. Vincent stood at the control panel, his broad frame a sentinel, fingers hovering over the override keys as if coaxing secrets from a locked manifest. The biometric lock's soft hum underscored the tension, a reminder that this bunker, tucked beneath the cannery's foundations, accessible only by a hidden stairwell, was his last line, built from lessons of past sieges. Maria huddled on the bench, her borrowed sweater pulled tight around her shoulders, the fabric doing little to ward off the chill seeping from the floor. Ricky's ping echoed in her mind. That burner signal a fragile lifeline, or a noose tightening. "He wouldn't lure you," she whispered, more to herself than the room, her voice cracking against the low rumble of thunder vibrating through the walls. Loyalty clawed at her, brother against the family she'd unwittingly joined, fear twisting the knife. Elena knelt beside her, squeezing her hand, the gesture a defiant anchor in the uncertainty. Autonomy burned in Elena's chest. She'd dragged Maria into this web, and now Papa's protective code enveloped them both, a shield that felt increasingly like a cage. Vincent's phone buzzed once, sharp in the confined space. A text from Marco. "Garage clear. 1 down, 1 cuffed. Albanian tats confirmed. Interrogation en route." He exhaled slowly, the scar on his cheek easing fractionally, but his eyes remained fixed on the secondary feed. The East Branch tunnels, satellite overlay marking Ricky's ping as a pulsing red dot amid the derelict rail maze. Storm drains snaked beneath the yards like veins, reeking of stagnant water and rust even in imagination, their concrete bowels a haven for deals gone sour. "The call's live," he said, voice gravel steady, breaking the silence. "Payphone at the depot entrance." Ricky's voice on the trace, panicked but clear. "Says Lika's crew is inbound, 2 vans, looking to grab you as payback." He glanced at Maria, appraising. "Your intel checks. Gate code 4732, side panel. But the storm's flooding the low points. Exits could jam." Elena's head snapped up, Rain's staccato on the outer hull amplifying her resolve. "Then go. Extract him before they turn the tunnels into a trap." The words carried her ethics, sharp against his world of calculated risks. Prudence versus the moral duty she'd claimed by helping Maria. Vincent's gaze met hers, possessiveness flickering. She'd always been his light, untainted by the dock's grime. But this pull toward the shadows tested his vows. Past losses haunted him. The wife's crash, engineered by a rival's betrayal, leaving him to forge a code of restraint amid the chaos. No innocence harmed, debts repaid in loyalty, not blood. Folding Maria in meant extending that to Ricky, a poor friend's kin, but at exposure's edge. "No," Vincent replied, thumbing the panel to arm the safe room's external defenses, gas vents prepped for non-lethal dispersal, doors bolted with hydraulic force. Marco's leading the pull. 2 SUVs, convoy escort from the warehouse perimeter. You both stay. But Elena stood, chin lifted, the air electric with their clash. "Papa, this is because of me. Maria's scared, and Ricky's no threat, just desperate. Let me help. Drive the terms like you always do." Maria rose too, her voice threading in, tentative but firm. "She's right. I know the tunnel's backways, old service hatches from when I waited for Ricky's shifts. If it's flooding, they'll bottleneck at the river grate." Human conflict simmered, her autonomy versus Vincent's iron guardianship, trust teetering on the edge of suspicion. He studied her, the subtle tells, averted eyes when Ricky's name surfaced, now steady with resolve. No deception there, just the raw pull of family, mirroring his own for Elena. Vincent's jaw tightened, the storm's howl underscoring his internal war. Legacy demanded he shield them, but Elena's fire, her independence blooming like a weed through concrete, demanded space. Unexpectedly, he nodded. "Fine. But wired. Both of you. Marco's earpiece feed to your phones. No heroics." It was concession wrapped in control, his code bending. Protection through inclusion, not isolation. He keyed the all clear, the door unsealing with a pneumatic hiss, releasing them into the service corridor where emergency lights bathed the stairs in crimson. The penthouse above had transformed into a warren of shadows, rain sheeting the windows like a veil, the harbor's cranes swaying in the gale like accusing fingers. Marco waited in the foyer, rain-slicked coat dripping onto the marble, his tablet clutched like a shield. Vans are rolling. Lika's crew hit the yards 5 minutes back, but our intercept's set. Tunnels are wet. One's already reporting water up to ankles. He handed over earpieces. Small and discreet, their hum syncing to the convoy's radios, distant engines growling over flooded streets, wipers slashing through downpours. Elena and Maria piled into the trailing SUV, Vincent taking point in the lead with Marco. The garage doors ground open, tires splashing through puddles that reflected the sodium glare, the convoy snaking toward the rail yards under the storm's assault. Inside, leather seats creaked with tension, the air thick with wet earth and adrenaline. Elena's phone crackled. Marco's voice clipped. Eyes on the depot, Ricky's silhouette at the payphone pacing. Leka's van blocking the gate, but we're flanking via the service road. Maria leaned forward, breath fogging the window as derelict warehouses loomed, their corrugated sides drumming with rain. The hatch is under the east overpass. Code's the same, but it sticks in wet. Tell them to lever it. Her words spilled logistics, born of shadowed vigils, the environment turning hazardous. Blackouts flickering from storm-surged lines, exits potentially swamped. The convoy hit the yards, headlights piercing the murk, gravel crunching under tires as they veered off-road toward the tunnels. Distant shouts echoed, Albanian curses in the downpour, followed by the crack of suppressed fire, muffled by thunder. Vincent's voice cut through the earpiece. Breach the gate, non-lethal takedowns. Elena's heart slammed, the push-pull visceral, her choice sparking this race, Papa's code holding the line against chaos. Marco's team moved like specters, slipping through the rusted gate as water sluiced from the overpass, soaking boots and blurring sights. Ricky bolted from the payphone at their approach, slipping on slick concrete toward the tunnel mouth. But a figure emerged from the shadows. Lika, bulked in a rain slicker, arm extended with a glint of steel. The storm masked the scuffle, a botched grab sending all three tumbling into the drain's maw, echoes swallowed by the roar. Elena's screen lit with fragmented feed. Flashlight beams dancing on dripping walls, water rising fast, lapping at ankles. Papa? Flood's coming. The river grates jamming. Vincent's response was terse. Hold the line. Convoy's extracting now. But as the signal stuttered, blackout hitting the yards, plunging feeds to static. A muffled splash sounded. Then silence. Was Ricky secured, or had the undertow claimed him, pulling the fragile alliance under? The SUVs idled in the rain, engines humming against the unknown, as lightning cracked, revealing a lone figure staggering from the tunnel. Friend, foe, or the cost of debts unpaid? Lightning fractured the sky, illuminating the lone figure staggering from the tunnel's maw like a specter risen from the depths. Water cascaded from the derelict rail yard's overpass, turning the gravel into a churning mire that sucked at boots and tires alike. The convoy's SUVs idled with low growls, headlights slicing through the sheets of rain, casting erratic beams on the scene. Elena's breath fogged the window, her earpiece crackling with static-laced urgency, Marco's voice cutting in and out. Contact. Tunnel breach. Hold position. The storm's roar swallowed the rest, thunder vibrating through the vehicle's frame like the pulse of the river itself, swollen and unforgiving below the grated storm drains. Vincent's lead SUV surged forward, tires spinning briefly in the mud before finding purchase, closing the gap to the tunnel entrance. The air inside reeked of wet leather and tension, the faint ozone of the blackout lingering from severed lines that had plunged the yards into momentary abyss. His hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white against the scarred leather, a man who'd navigated worse than this flooded labyrinth, but never with his daughter's choices at stake. Elena's voice piped through the radio, sharp with autonomy's edge. Papa, that's Ricky. Has to be. Don't let them take him. Possessiveness warred in him. She'd woven this stray into their tapestry, forcing his code to stretch, protect the innocent, even those teetering on the brink of betrayal. From the trailing vehicle, Maria leaned into the feed on Elena's phone, her face pale under the dashboard glow. The grate, it's buckling. If Lika's men pinned him, the water'll... Her words trailed, loyalty to her brother clashing with the fear knotting her gut. The Albanians' play was clear now. Organized, leveraging Ricky's dead as bait, surveillance threads, traffic cams hacked for plates, burner pings traced via payphone relays, converging on the penthouse as the real prize. Vincent's empire, with its discreet ledgers of favors and guard rotations synced to evade rivals, had a chink. Family vulnerabilities, exposed by a poor friend's hidden ties. Marco's team fanned out from the SUVs, shadows merging with the rain-slicked concrete, their movements precise despite the hazard. Flashlights pierced the tunnel's gloom, revealing the chaos within. Knee-deep water foaming around rusted rails, echoes of scuffle muffled by the storm's din. A muffled shout, Albanian accent, laced with frustration, bounced off the dripping walls, followed by the splash of retreat. Vincent killed the engine, stepping into the deluge, coat instantly sodden, the chill biting like old grudges. "Flank the grate!" he barked into his radio, voice steady as the freighter's manifests he guarded. Non-lethal. Extract the kid. Alive. Inside the tunnel, the environment turned lethal. Water rising fast from the jammed river grate, debris, discarded crates and oil drums, bobbing like hazards in the current. Ricky huddled against a concrete pillar, hood plastered to his face, an Albanian enforcer. Leka's second by the ink peeking from his sleeve, pinned nearby by Marco's knee, zip ties biting into wrists. No graphic struggle, just the efficient triage of threats. A guard's behavioral tell, a hesitant glance toward the exit, betraying a turncoat in the ranks, paid off with whispers of easy cash. Ricky's eyes widened as Vincent loomed, rain streaming down his scar like tears from a past wound. They said, "Maria." I didn't sell her out, just needed the haul to square it. Vincent hauled him up, grip firm but not crushing, water sloshing around their calves. "Debts end tonight. Your sister's under my roof, means your family now. But lies cost." It was the code speaking. Vows kept under pressure, restraint amid the pull of retribution. Ricky nodded, coughing against the spray, the weight of his desperation lifting fractionally as Marco's team secured the enforcer, radioing for a cleanup crew to handle the van's plates. Stolen from a junker, traced back to an Albanian warehouse via access logs. The extraction raced against the flood, convoy reversing from the yards, engines straining over flooded paths, wipers battling the onslaught. A botched escort nearly derailed them, a trailing shadow, distant watchers in an unmarked sedan on the elevated road, its headlights flickering like a false alarm. Vincent's phone pinged in intercept, the sedan's plates matching a bodega clerk's tip, Leica's probe exposed by a subtle inconsistency in guard rotations at the docks. Blackout hit again, storm surge transformers popping in the distance, plunging the convoy into hazard, tires hydroplaning on the slick asphalt, jammed exits from debris-strewn side streets forcing a detour through the warehouse district. Elena's SUV swerved, heart slamming as the lead vehicle fishtailed, but Vincent steadied it, voice calm over the earpiece. "Stay tight. Helipad's hot if we need it." The cost mounted. A minor scrape on the flank from a guardrail, exposure in the form of a federal scanner ping, human error in the chaos, a tail too close calling in a routine check. But victory edged in, no full breach, no sacrifices beyond bruises and soaked resolve. As they crested the hill toward the cannery, the penthouse lights beckoned like a beacon, the river's rage fading behind. Back in the safe room, now a debrief haven, Ricky slumped in a chair, toweling his hair, Maria at his side, her hand on his arm, a quiet reclamation. Elena watched from the doorway, the air warming with the penthouse's hum, storm ebbing to a drizzle. Vincent entered last, shedding his coat, the weight of the night etched in his posture. Threats real. Albanian organized hit, using your brother as the hook, he said, eyes on Maria and Ricky. Lika's cuffed, vans impounded. Your debt, squared by ours, but you work it off. Clean hauls, no sides. Ricky met his gaze, gratitude mingling with the fear's residue. Understood. For Maria. And you. It was the revelation. Not gold or power, but trust forged in the undertow. A found family expanding beyond bloodlines. Elena stepped forward, autonomy yielding to the bond they'd built, her ethics aligning with his code, independence tempered by shared protection. Vincent pulled her aside, voice low amid the room's settling quiet. You chose this path, Principessa. Cost us a night, but gained loyalty that outlasts the docks. His hand on her shoulder carried the legacy. Past losses shaping choices, power restrained by vows. The true treasure gleamed in the glances exchanged. Maria's relief, Ricky's tentative nod, Elena's fierce smile. Material spoils paled. What remained was memory of the flood survived, the chosen kin unbreakable. As dawn broke, painting the harbor in soft golds, the penthouse stirred with new rhythms. Breakfast shared. Plans sketched on discreet ledgers, not of debts, but futures. The adventure's echo lingered in the faint scars, the jammed grates rust, the storm's chill. But loyalty's warmth endured, transforming strays into safeguards, the river's secrets yielding to their unbreakable code. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of loyalty, danger, and found family. See you in the next story.